Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at HIMS and HIRS health. It is time for another update, and on this chart we have finally managed to get here into the last level of support within this correction, within this area provided to you months ago. Yeah, we would have been able to track this exact area of support ever since we actually formed the top within the wave A, which was in fact on the last day of July when we started this larger correction. We even had a potential 5-wave move to the downside, which was highly suggestive that there is a significant risk that after a 3-wave correction we should expect continuation in another 5-wave move to the downside that now actually has quite a clear structure, can easily be considered complete, and we can consider a bottom to be in place. Now, of course, there is no guarantee. It's also not a very clear structure within this wave C that has unfolded. I could very easily track it in many different ways, but this is still a very interesting area, and we will be discussing more about that in a moment, because I want to go quickly through the larger time frame for any of you who might be new. And within this chart, we have been tracking this idea of a large leading diagonal where we need to form a 5-wave move to the upside. Now that is if it succeeds forming this leading diagonal. And within this expectation, right now we would be within a wave 3. Yeah, we have here the wave 1 up, the wave 2 down, and now we would be in the third wave to the upside. And in my preferred interpretation, we are probably towards the end of a larger wave 3. Yeah, we are in the later stages of a 5th wave in this case. Of course, this would imply this would be an ABC structure, and other interpretations are certainly possible. I could track this to be, even this to be a 1-2 setup. Doesn't matter exactly the count, and other interpretations are possible. As I was saying, this could have been the entire wave A, have the wave B here, and the wave C would have only built the wave 1 so far. This would actually imply even stronger long-term prospects, but if we actually fail to push directly higher right now, it could also imply a large extension lower, still within the same pattern. Within this interpretation, where right now we are in the 5th wave, which again is my preferred interpretation, we would need to already start moving higher as we have gotten into the last level of support. Yeah, if we actually make a sustained break below the 78.6% retracement here, it is actually a warning sign that this structure will end up failing, most likely. And yeah, that we will fail holding overall even the wave 4 area of support, which is considerably lower, but yeah, we already pushed into the last level of support. We actually wicked below the last level of support for the wave 4 interpretation already. And the break below the $30 level is the signal that this structure is likely not going to hold, but right now the prospects remain just as positive as on the day 1 of the beginning of this correction. We have here a 5-wave move to the upside. We expected a 3-wave correction into this area of support. Doesn't matter where into this area of support we get to, yeah, it doesn't matter if we stop at the first level or if we get to the last level, the probabilities remain the same. In fact, it's even favorable to us that we get to lower areas of support and that we get to accrue positions within this area, because the risk is much lower. Yeah, if we actually fall below the $30 level at this point, what is the risk? Like a few percentages, what? Not even 10%. Well, if we actually were to accrue at higher levels, let's say the initial bottom at the 50% retracement, we would have been able to head down even almost 30% and would have still been under the impression that this structure could still work out, yeah? And in fact we did retrace higher, but then we still went into much lower levels, and the probabilities are still there. So right now it may be considered a much more favorable position to accumulate, yeah? And in the end, if we consider that this is a 3-wave move to the downside, which it is, we can consider that at least from this time frame perspective, it is within a very interesting area, yeah? We have our 5-wave move to the upside, our 3-wave correction, and we are looking for continuation higher within our even large time frame scenario. Now, of course, I'm not telling you what to do. Do your own research. You may also search like the fundamentals and everything you want about the company, about the outlook for the future, but from an Elliott Wave perspective, we are in a very interesting area, and the potential is there, the risk is low. For example, we can even look for an ideal target for the wave C, which is the 100% extension of the wave A. Now we have an updated target because we formed a new low within this area, but that would be around the $87.5 level. Yeah, that is the ideal target, and we don't even need to stop there. Of course, we don't need to get there, but even the 100% extension, it's almost 3x from the bottom. Yeah, it is already high potential, yeah, for a high or a very good risk reward trade setup. And I definitely find this area overall, and have found this area overall, very interesting for an accumulation area. Yeah, we were looking for continuation lower, we were looking actually for a low below the wave A ever since we topped within the wave B and we started this correction. And it has been an interesting ride for me. Yeah, I've been looking for opportunities within this area, and certainly there have been some. Unfortunately, we only formed this three-wave move to the upside once we formed the initial bottom, the initial local low. But of course, we were looking for possible continuation lower, and now that we have gotten it, we have this candle that, yeah, again, has a bottoming candle look. Yeah, it could be considered to have formed the bottom. Now, I cannot guarantee you this, but the levels are interesting, certainly from a larger time frame perspective, and I wouldn't necessarily need any additional lows, because within this structure to the downside, I can certainly track this as a 1, 2, 3, 4th, and the 5th within an ending diagonal in the wave C. This is in fact what we have been tracking for further extensions, because for the yellow interpretation here, I was considering a potential 5-wave move to the downside to already be in place within this area. Yeah, I didn't need this additional low, but certainly the market did. The market sentiment did suggest that another low was possible. We have been tracking that within the orange interpretation, and we have formed here the next wave to the downside, the next 5th wave down in an ABC movement that I don't consider needs any additional structures lower. And we see divergences, we see reaction to relevant levels of the overall support. Yeah, here we have some divergences, especially on the large time frames. We can notice them even better. Yeah, even on the daily, we see lower lows on the price chart, but on the RSI, we actually see higher lows. That is a good signal. That is a signal that a 5th wave would have played out within this area. Now, assuming we might have a bottom, what structure can we actually look for continuation higher? Well, previously we were looking actually already for a potential 5-wave move to the upside, and we have even gotten it, but it was certainly within a very small time frame, and within this area we actually formed a 5-wave move. I might even consider this to be something like a WXY or maybe an ABC structure. In the end, unfortunately, it didn't work out. We did extend higher within a 5th wave, what could have been considered a 5th wave, but we've also pushed into the 50% retracement for continuation lower within the orange scenario, and ultimately we did extend lower. Now, from the current low, while the bottoming structure is interesting and has potential, so far we don't have a structure that is telling us with high probabilities that a bottom is in place. And unfortunately, the most reliable structure that I can track within this area is probably a series of 1-2 setups, and yeah, that is a bit unrealistic, especially within this small time frame. But I wanted to do this video especially for the longer term, yeah, because I wanted to showcase how low we are within the area of support, how much opportunity there is, how low risk compared to reward there is. Yeah, we have built basically an identical structure on the red cat chart, where we have formed a bottom at the 78.6% retracement, and we already doubled within the push to the upside. We already doubled in price since we actually formed the low, and we had the area of support, the same ABC setup that we have right now on this chart. Some of you might have used that opportunity, but some of you, I'm sure, missed it, and this is another such opportunity. Now, again, I'm not guaranteeing it will work out, but the levels are interesting, the risk is low, because again, below the 78.6% retracement, a sustained break below that is a signal that this structure is probably not going to work out. But right now, we are holding it, we are doing very good, and even though in this smaller time frame, all we have is this series of potential 1-2 setups within this area, I'm still interested in the potential, yeah? And for the latest structure that I'm tracking for support, I would be looking here at a 1-2, and in the wave 2 we have something like an ABC structure, in which case I'm looking for continuation higher. Now, I'm not telling you that if we fail to hold here the internal 78.6% retracement, a complete failure will occur, because in the end I could also track this as something like an ABC structure within a larger 1-2 setup. Interpretations could work out, interpretations and structures could morph, especially within such a small time frame. Now, if you want to look for internal areas of resistance, however, I would need to provide something more generic within this area, because here we could have something like a 1-2 setup, and in this case I would be watching the levels between the $32.2 all the way up to the $34.9, and if we actually manage to break above the last level of resistance, that is an important signal. That break is actually telling me that we are likely going to break above the beginning of this push to the downside, and the break above that is invalidation of continuation lower within this as a movement to the downside, within this as a wave down. This would have been a wave complete in that case, and such a signal would be strong for providing us context from a larger time frame perspective that this structure is much more likely not going to extend lower. Yeah, we need to be patient at the moment in the smaller time frame. We need to wait for the structure to form, but from a large time frame perspective, again, very deep within the area of support. Watch the red cat chart. Yeah, we just did a video on that yesterday. Very similar structure. We had the same potential and it delivered. But for now, there really isn't much else to add. These are the levels. This is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.